Welcome to the Checkpoint Certified Security Administrator course. So, in this particular module, we are going to be configuring policy management. So, we're going to be creating policies. So, let's log into Smart Console. So, the very first thing that we would want to do after we are done with the onboarding of the security gateway would be to create policies. To create our policies, we would have to come down to security policies. For checkpoints, you have a default cleanup rule that drops any traffic that does not match. So by default, you have a cleanup rule that drops any traffic that does not match any of the rules. Okay, so you should always have a cleanup rule. Now, the first policy, or rather the first rule, because a policy is made up of rules. So the first rule that you would want to have would be your management rule. Your management rule says that a particular device is permitted to talk to your security gateway and to your security management server. If you do not configure your management rule, you would observe that you might not be able to log in to the web UI of either your firewall or your security management server. So it's always very important that you create a management rule. So let's create one. We'll right click on this and then we'll click on create a new rule above. So we're going to call this management rule. So let's call this the management rule. So for the source, now, the source can be any, so you can put it as any, or if you are in a production environment, then you can specify the exact source. Okay, so let's create an object. Let's create one, or let's create, okay, so we can create an object like a host that is going to represent our Windows server. That is one option. So we're going to type Windows Server. Then we're going to give it an IP address 192.168.15.4. Okay, optionally, we can come here and then we can also select NAT. But I would advise rather than configuring NAT for individual hosts, it's easier to configure NAT for the network. Okay, for the entire subnet as the case may be. So we'll just leave this as it is. It's a Windows server now. Checkpoint has specific protections for server or for servers. For instance, if you click on servers and you decide that this is going to be your DNS server, you can scroll down to where you have DNS server and then you click on protections. So as you can see, there are default protections for DNS servers. And then you can also choose if you want to configure this. Okay, so let's say it is not a DNS server, but maybe it is maybe a like a mail server. So we can come down to mail servers. We can choose the operating system, whether it's Windows, whether it's Linux, as the case may be. You can choose the ports, whether it's a post office protocol, your port 3, whether it is the Internet Message Access Protocol, which is your IMAP, or whether it is a simple mail transfer protocol, which is your SMTP. So you can choose the associated ports, as the case may be. And then you have protections as well. So you can, okay, enable POP3 slash IMAP security. If you want, you can say, fine, okay, this is not a mail server, this is going to be a web server. Then you will see that you can choose the configuration, you can select the operating system, you can also select the application engine, whether it's going to be ASP, whether it's going to be PHP, as the case may be, Oracle, SQL Server, SQL Server, as the case may be. Then you can also select the ports as well. You can add some additional ports. You can select the protections. Okay, so you can see protections for yourself, for your cross-site scripting, for your LDAP injection, SQL injection, command injection, and many more OWASP top 10 attacks. So your checkpoint has the ability to function as a web application firewall. So in addition to being a next generation firewall that provides perimeter security, it also has that additional feature to provide security for your web servers. So you can use your checkpoint security gateway as a WAF. Okay, now, so let's say this is a web server, as the case may be, all the protections are there, it's verified. So the very next thing that we would want to do, having created this object, would be to, okay, so let's take this up a bit and then we'll click on OK. So what we've done so far is to say that for our management rule, the source is the Windows server and the destination is going to be our checkpoint appliances. So we have a checkpoint security gateway and a checkpoint security management server. For VPN, we're going to leave it as any for now until we have configured VPN. But because we have not configured VPN yet, we're going to leave this as any. Now for the services and application, because it's a lab, we can leave it as any. But in a production environment, you might want to specify the exact services. You can say, okay, fine, things like maybe your CPM, which stands for checkpoint management. You can select things like your FWM as a case. You can actually select things like your HTTP or your HTTPS as the case may be. So you can select all, or you can also, if you want, you can also select something like your CPM. Okay, so you can select CPM and many more actually. But let's leave this as any for now. Okay, and then for the action, it is going to be accept. Then we are going to track this. Tracking means that we want to get logs. Now you can choose to get logs, you can choose to get alerts, you can get SNMP, you can get mails, user alerts, and many more. Later in the course, we're going to take a look at the different or various forms of alerts. Okay, so having done this, let's minimize this so we can see. Now you can actually select the policy installation target. If you have more than one security gateway, you can specify the exact security gateway that you want to make use of. Okay, so if you have like 5 security gateways, you can choose a particular gateway. So you can select, say maybe you want to install it on gateway 1, or you can leave it as your policy installation target. Anyone is fine. Having done this, the next policy that would want to create would be to create another policy called the stealth rule. Now, what the stealth rule does is that it prevents other people from accessing your security management server. So we're going to leave this as any. Okay, the destination is going to be our security gateway and our security management server. So let's drag this up here, or we can come down. So okay, so let's select security CPSMS. Okay, VPN is any, services and application is going to be any, action is drop, and the track is log. Now, what this means is that anybody whosoever who is trying to okay, so I think your management rule should be above your stealth rule. Okay, yeah, this is beautiful. So let's cut this. We're going to cut this and then we're going to paste it above. Okay, so for your management role, it says, okay, Windows Server can access the security gateway and the security management server, but that any other object is denied access to your devices. Now, beneath this, we're going to create another rule and we're going to call this internet access. Okay, so for internet access, let's say we want to give, if you want anybody, or you can select your Windows server. So we want to give Windows server access to the internet. We can leave this as any, or we can change this to all internet. Okay, so we want Windows Server to gain access to the internet. Services or application, we can leave it as any, or we can choose to select DNS, or we can select DNS, we can select HTTPS. Okay, we can select HTTPS, we can select HTTP, or you can deny HTTP if you want. You can also select FTP as well. Okay, so the choice is yours. Let's select HTTPS. Okay, so having selected this, then we're going to change the action to accept, and then we're going to log this. So these are the basic policies that you create for your firewall. Now, this is also known as the access control policy. All this does is to permit or deny traffic from a source to a destination. Your access control policy or your firewall policy does not filter, or rather, it does not inspect the contents of the traffic. No, it doesn't it does not inspect the traffic. All it does is say, is computer A permitted to talk to computer B? If yes, allow. If no, deny. But it does not inspect. If you want to inspect the traffic, you'll need to turn on HTTPS inspection. You'll need to turn on your application and URL filtering blade. So you turn on application control blade, you turn on your URL filtering blade, you can turn on content awareness, you can turn on your data loss prevention blades. Okay, so having created these policies, the next thing we'll do would be to publish. So you can choose to publish your policy, or you can choose to install your policy. So if you click on install, it will publish and install at the same time. Publishing means that you are saving the policy on the security management server. Install means that the security management server is going to push and install the policies on the security gateway so that the security gateway can enforce your policies. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So we'll just wait for this to install. You can actually monitor the progress. Okay, now this is fine because this is our first installation whatsoever. Okay, so let's run this again. So we'll click on install. Then okay, let's uncheck this, and then let's click on install. So as you can see, policy installation succeeded. So this is how you create your security policies. So with this, we've come to the end of this particular module. I'll meet you in the next one. Thank you.